Brought to you by Charity Mobile. Switch to the phone company that supports your beliefs. All plans start under $50 before taxes and surcharges. Use promo code TRADITION at CharityMobile.com for a special offer.
There's an open question right now. Some traditional Catholic commentators are all on board Pope Leo XIV team, ignoring the bad appointments that are coming to dioceses everywhere. I've documented a lot of these terrible bishops that he's appointed, and ignoring that a lot of those homilies he gives they sound pretty good until you actually really listen closely. Then they come out to be pretty vapid, but they're all on board. And then the other side is, what I was just hinting at, right? I'm not very good at being subtle about this, but there's a tug of war going on. And this tug of war is Pope Leo XIV Francis II, or is he going to be Benedict XVII? That's the tug of war. Is he going to be a very conservative Vatican II kind of pope like Benedict XVI, except Augustinian, or will he be Francis II but with better manners? This tug of war is very divisive, and it's the secular media is playing a very strange role in promoting their preferred outcome for this. This will surprise nobody because they love them some Francis. Headline from the Globe and Mail. The Vatican was looking for an improved Francis model and just might have found one in Leo XIV. They are promoting the idea that he is Francis II. Now, to be fair, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence for that, including all of the praises he gave to Francis from the Loggia and since then. His a constant invoking of synodality and how we're going to continue the synodal project of Pope Francis. The real indications will be whenever his Roman Curia appointments come. Whenever those finally arrive, we will know. Word is they've been delayed. We'll see. If he keeps the Fernandezes in like men like Fernandez in their current post or moves them to some other equally bad post for them, we'll know. Or if he points men like who cause alarm bells to go off, who might be otherwise unknown to most people, but it turns out they're bad actors too, we'll know. There's enough there to be watchful. There's enough there to be watchful. There's already smoke there because of the bad appointments to Episcopal conferences and a lot of the kind of vapid homilies he gives. And I know that might be shocking for some people to hear, but go read his homilies. You're going to hear very little about repentance and conversion. You hear a little bit more about Jesus from him than Francis, and that's great. It's still a lot of materialist, making a better world stuff. And if you're worried about, the stagnation of the faith, making a better world is not the way you're going to light the fires of faith in people. They certainly are, the secular media, trying to sell you on the idea that Leo is Francis II. From their article, quote, "It has become customary to review the performance of political leaders after their first 100 days in office. Popes, of course, are not political leaders, although they remain head of the Vatican city-state, a sovereign entity, and the first 100 days is a mere drop in the holy font given the length of contemporary papacies. They also do not run for re-election. Once a conclave has done its work, the matter is settled, unless you resign like Benedict XVI, in which case the College of Cardinals has to start all over again. Pope Francis remained in office until his death, so the conclave that saw the election of the first American pope conformed to the traditional protocols. The result, comparatively young Augustinian friar from Chicago with long stints in Peru, as well as time spent in the Vatican bureaucracy or curia, is the new pontiff. Cardinal Robert Prevost now has a new name and august responsibilities as Leo XIV. The cardinal electors intentionally chose a prelate who is not Francis. They did not choose an anti-Francis. They wanted a custodian, not an innovator. They wanted a stabilizer. In short, they wanted an improved Francis model." We'll pause there. If he is a custodian, if he is just stopping everything that Francis has done, by stopping, I don't mean stopping it, but not building on it, but not undoing it, that means he's letting things marinate. That means he is more on the team of Francis than not. After all, as some have pointed out, Traditionis Custodes should be repealed. Amors Laetitia should be repealed. Fiducia Supplicans definitely should be repealed. The proposed document from Cardinal Koch on reducing the papacy to a purely advisory symbolic role as a first among equals, a very Eastern Orthodox idea. To Leo's benefit on all this, part of the mystique about him is that he was elected in May, and the Vatican slows down dramatically during the summer, especially from mid-July to mid-August, when the Pope typically takes his vacation, and Pope Leo took that vacation at the traditional time. So not a lot has been done, but except for a lot of addresses, and he's invoked synodality an awful lot. And this article definitely goes into synodality, which is, again, weird because this is from a secular outlet. Whereas Francis humanized the papacy, simplified its trappings, eschewed its solemn splendor, and popularized the papal personality, Leo has revived much of the older style with its raiment and regal bearing, and disports himself with a dignity of gait and manner reminiscent of Pope Paul VI. The opulence of the Argentine has been replaced with the reserve of the American. This is not to suggest that Leo is lacking in personal warmth. Those who know him all attest to his natural humility and native kindness in attending to them one-on-one. But the charismatic leadership of Francis is not replicated by the new Bishop of Rome. Leo is a canon lawyer by training, the first such pope in over a century, and that professional formation speaks to the way he approaches the challenges facing the Church. A graduate of the Angelicum, the Dominican Pontifical University at Rome that is known for its constitutionally conservative canon law faculty, Leo fine-tuned his legal credentials when he served as a priest and bishop in Peru, erecting legal tribunals and negotiating fraught relationships between an ultra-conservative hierarchy and an authoritarian political regime. Reflecting his legal education, Leo's natural disposition is to move with caution and a steady hand, forensic, deliberative, and risk-averse. I'm going to pause here again. If it is true that he is risk-averse, you are not going to see Traditionis Custodes overturned, or Fiducia Supplicans, or any of those other things, because there come gigantic risks with that. We already know what the risks are by keeping the status quo. It's the status quo. It will just continue. You undo these revolutionary acts of Francis, you don't know what the consequences will be. And his entire point is unity. He keeps talking about unity a lot. Recent homily he gave, I read it, was all about unity and not being overtly like fake pious about it. Risk aversion seems to be a common topic we keep bringing up. People don't engage in radical change. They simply don't. Mathematics and canon law shape his thinking, but there are limitations to such a formation. The eminent Irish theologian Gabriel Daly, an Augustinian like Leo, publicly mused that his order sent him to Rome to learn what to think, and then to Oxford to learn how to think. Francis' efforts to recharge the Church's updating, or aggiornamento, which is from Vatican II, to maximize the involvement of the laity at every level of Church life, from Vatican governments to local diocesan decision-making, were sometimes stillborn, the casualty of hierarchical tepidity and clerical apprehension. Francis was changing the very nature of the Church, his critics argued, and we needed to restore the old order before it became a footnote. Leo, a trusted confidant of Francis, offers the prospect of restoration and continuity. He departs from the Francis style, but retains a commitment to the Francis projects. His approach is understated rather than theatrical. He will not undo what Francis began, but will mitigate with the practiced Vatican subtlety, honed over centuries, troublesome events that threaten to fracture rather than unify. But there are potential cracks in such an approach. For instance, much of the current crisis in credibility in the Catholic Church is attributed to clerical misgovernance, if not malfeasance. If the clergy, or more specifically the curse of clericalism that holds them captive, defines the heart of the problem, then the selection of candidates for the priesthood, the model and curriculum of their training, and the process of identifying and promoting bishops all call out for reform. Francis was a severe and consistent critic of the clergy, exhorting them to a behavior that conforms to the gospel rather than a lifestyle of redolence of privilege. Leo, by contrast, inclines to the affirmation rather than the exhortation model. He befriends rather than berates. But there will come a time when he will need to make hard decisions about the reforming agenda of his predecessor. And although he may have a reformer's instinct, he has yet to evidence a reformer's zeal. Francis's prophetic commitment to what he called synodality, a new way of being as a church, entails more than a safe endorsement of synodality as a new attitude or style. It means substantive and history-altering changes that require more than a papal blessing. He is dedicated to their projects, they keep telling you. We've heard that a lot, actually. We've seen it from himself. Keeps invoking synodality. I'm going to remind you that at the end of this year, we're supposed to get documents, guiding documents on synodality. making the church a more synodal, welcoming place from various committees. This synodal project's already been extended to the end of the decade, making it like the longest council in my memory, except maybe Trent. How he handles these things will also be a giveaway. But if he is there not to stop and undo what Francis did, but to let things marinate and continue the implementation, then yeah, he is essentially walking the same path as Francis, even if he is much better than Francis in terms of not berating people. The biggest problems with Pope Francis was not that he berated people. It was that he tried to radically change the church. Never forget that. Napoleon says it's interesting though that Leo meets with Cardinal Burke. I mean, Francis met with Cardinal Burke too. I wouldn't read too much into that until we get details. I'm curious what you think about this, so let me know in the comments. Do you tend to think that that article is right? That Leo is a rebranded Francis? That's kind of the article's point. Secular authorities are always trying to push, secular media especially, is always trying to push the church into directions it wants. So bear that in mind. They called Vatican II the Media Council for a reason. The secular media was out there pushing the church hard for reform, promoting narratives that the church was going to change X, Y, and Z things, and then it didn't. So let me know what you think of this in the comments. I'm curious what you think about this, and pray for everybody we spoke about today. I'm not trying to stir you up against the Pope. I'm not trying to stir you up against anybody. But it's interesting that the secular media is pushing this narrative that Leo is Francis II. We've seen this repeatedly. We've also seen it repeatedly from cardinals in the College of Cardinals. So I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. Sharing this social media helps a lot too. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.